as if the building itself were breathing. Eli Mercer stood in the center of it, wrists bound by an iridescent band that hummed every time he shifted. He was trying not to look at the alien faces that surrounded him, sharp, translucent beings whose eyes refracted the glow into 1,000 cold colors. The sentence had been read aloud in 3 languages, none of which felt human anymore. Rehabilitative union. They called it. Not prison, not exile. A union. A merging of life with a species that didn't even have blood. He was to be married to a Zalari diplomat named Seratage. The crowd murmured as if this punishment was somehow merciful. Eli clenched his jaw. "You can't force this," he said, though his words evaporated into the echoing chamber. The presiding judge tilted her crystalline head. "You smuggled restricted technology. Your species seeks integration. Consider this service to peace." Peace. The word made him want to laugh. They'd stolen his ship, stripped his license, and now they wanted him to play symbol of unity. The band around his wrist flickered, and 2 attendants approached. Their touch was cool and strangely weightless, guiding him toward the figure waiting by the archway. Seratage was taller than he expected. Statuesque, her body composed of subtle layers of opalescent material that caught and bent light like water through glass. Her face wasn't human, but her eyes, deep pools of shifting violet, held something like intelligence, maybe even pity. She didn't smile. He doubted her species had evolved that reflex. When she spoke, it was like hearing a chord played on an unseen instrument. "You are Eli Mercer." He didn't answer. "I do not require your consent," she added, tone even, "but cooperation would make this easier." He met her gaze, defiant. "Don't expect any." Her expression didn't change. Expectation is an inefficient form of hope. The ceremony began almost immediately. The chamber dimmed, and threads of luminescence wound between them, forming a lattice that suspended their silhouettes. There were no vows, no words, just a steady transfer of energy between bodies. Her species' version of unity. When the light touched him, it was like being flayed open by warmth. He felt her presence inside his skull, a flood of sensations, colors, and a vast age pressing against his mind. He staggered backward, gasping. "It is done," someone said. The band around his wrist dissolved into dust. They led him outside into the cold evening of Epsilon Verge. The sky was pale orange, the sun dim and stretched by the planet's thin atmosphere. He was taken to her residence on the edge of the colony, a structure that rose like a frozen wave, every wall faintly singing when the wind passed. The air smelled of minerals and distant storms. Inside, he saw no furniture, no comfort, just curved walls, embedded crystals, and a low platform of light where she stood waiting. "You will remain here," she said. "The dwelling adapts to shared biosignatures. It will learn you." He dropped his bag with a dull thud. "I'm not staying longer than I have to." "There is no duration," she replied. "The bond endures until dissolution of one life." Her calmness infuriated him. "You call this diplomacy. I call it slavery." She tilted her head slightly, considering. "Slavery requires desire for dominion. We seek alignment." He turned away, pacing. "You know nothing about what I want." "Not yet." He slept on the floor that night, using his jacket as a pillow, surrounded by walls that shifted colors with every heartbeat. When he woke, the light had dimmed to a gentle blue. Seratage was sitting or hovering, in silence, her form cross-legged in midair, eyes closed, her surface rippling faintly with internal glow. Meditation, he guessed. For days, they spoke little. A translator orb hovered nearby when communication became necessary. She worked on diplomatic transmissions, her fingers tracing sigils of light in the air. He fixed broken power lines, vented his frustration on metal instead of words. The colony's windstorms came often, filling the air with static. The sound of it reminded him of home, though there was no home left for him to return to. One evening, a storm stronger than any before rattled the walls. Power flickered. The floor trembled. A section of the ceiling cracked, sending shards of luminescent crystal scattering across the room. Seratage reached toward a control node, but a surge of energy lashed out, striking her across the arm. Her body convulsed, light fracturing erratically. Eli didn't think. He moved. He dove toward the control conduit, grabbed the smoking cable, and wrenched it free with his bare hands. Pain seared through him, bright and immediate. When he looked up, she was staring at him, violet eyes wide. The room fell silent, except for the storm's howl outside. She rose slowly, her damaged arm already reforming, the glow stabilizing. "You intervened," she said softly. "Yeah," he muttered, shaking his burned hand. "You were about to fry yourself." Her gaze lingered on his injury. "You did not calculate the cost. Didn't have time to." Something in her eyes shifted, a faint shimmer, almost emotion. "Human impulse," she murmured. "Unpredictable, yet functional." He gave a bitter laugh. "You're welcome." Later that night, he noticed her standing by the window, watching the sky shimmer with dust and light. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, the musical resonance subdued. "When the storm touched you, I felt your mind. It was unshielded. Guess I'm not built for psychic privacy." "You fear confinement," she said, more statement than question. He turned from her. "I fear being used." A pause. "Then we're not so different." That startled him. He looked back, trying to read her alien face. For the first time, he saw a weariness in the way her light pulsed, uneven, dimmed at the edges. Maybe she hadn't wanted this either. He sat down opposite her. "So what now?" "We endure," she said simply. Her answer was unsatisfying, yet strangely grounding. The walls around them adjusted to a warmer hue, like dawn bleeding through glass. He watched her profile in the soft glow, wondering what it must be like to live for centuries, to be bound to someone you didn't choose. Outside, the storm quieted. The colony's power grid stabilized. For a brief, fragile moment, he felt a thread of calm between them, a silence that wasn't empty but shared. When he finally lay down again, the floor beneath him vibrated faintly with the rhythm of her pulse through the crystalline structure. It felt less like a prison now, more like the deep inhale of something waiting to change. He didn't know if it was acceptance or exhaustion that kept his eyes closed. But just before sleep took him, he heard her voice, a whisper that might have been thought rather than sound. "You are not what I expected human." He almost smiled in the dark. "You and me both." The walls pulsed once, as if in response, and then fell still. The bond had begun, not in love, not yet, but in the smallest flicker of understanding. And though neither would have admitted it, both knew that nothing would remain unchanged. The weeks after the storm unfolded in a rhythm neither of them fully understood. The colony resumed its routines, machines humming, transports lifting through copper skies. But within Sertich's crystalline dwelling, time moved differently. The air carried the faint hum of their bond, an invisible thread neither could sever nor fully ignore. Eli spent his days repairing hydrocore filters, grateful for the distraction of manual labor, while Sertich met with envoys and transmitted reports in pulses of coded light. Yet even amid their separate duties, they felt the silent gravity pulling them into each other's orbits. One morning, a malfunction in the colony's water purification system forced them into shared work. The hydrocore chamber was half submerged, mist rising from fractured vents. Sertich moved with mechanical precision, her fingers dancing over the crystalline controls. But the rhythm faltered when a surge rippled through the grid. "Stabilize the conduit," she called, her tone still even but edged with urgency. Eli was already on it. He plunged his hands into the control panel, rerouting power manually. Sparks spat across his knuckles. "Your calibrations are too slow," he snapped. She glanced at him, unoffended. "Your methods lack safety protocols." "Yeah," he muttered, "but they work." When the system finally steadied, a low pulse filled the chamber, a deep vibration that resonated through their chests. For a moment, their eyes met. It wasn't gratitude she gave him, not yet, but recognition. They had survived the same danger by trusting each other, if only instinctively. That evening, she appeared at the threshold of his quarters, carrying a small prism that glowed faintly violet. "A token of exchange," she said. "Among my people, it signifies shared risk." He hesitated, then took it. The prism was cool, almost alive beneath his fingertips. Thanks, he said, uncertain what else to offer. She watched him closely. You speak gratitude as if it were apology. Habit, he replied. Humans say thank you when they don't know how to say anything else. Sarah T.H. considered that, then set the translator orb aside. We will communicate without this tonight, she said. Direct resonance may clarify what words distort. He frowned. You mean telepathy? A limited merging. Memories only as offered. Eli hesitated but nodded. Fine. No promises I'll like what I see. She extended her hand, and when he touched it, the room dissolved. His mind filled with light. No images at first, only emotion. Then came fragments, a crystalline plane under violet stars, the echo of laughter that wasn't human, a towering spire collapsing in silence. He saw a younger version of her, her light bright and unfractured, standing beside another Zalari whose body radiated a golden hue. Then an explosion, the soundless shockwave of war. He felt her grief like a physical weight, a pressure behind his eyes. The image broke, leaving her dimmed, alone. He pulled back, breath ragged. That was your mate, he said quietly. Yes. Her voice trembled for the first time. The war took much from both our species. He looked away. My brother died in that war, smuggling med supplies across the blockade. Her gaze softened. Then we are both remnants. They stood in silence. The translator orb flickered, unnecessary now. Something had shifted, an understanding too deep for language. Over the next few days, they worked side by side more often. She no longer gave orders. She made requests. He found himself listening to her hum soft notes while calibrating sensors, the sound oddly comforting. Once, when a human overseer mocked her voice as machine music, Eli struck him across the jaw before he could think twice. The colony's security officers detained him for half a day, but when he returned, Sarah T.H. was waiting by the entrance. You risked penalty for me, she said. He shrugged. He had it coming. She tilted her head. Humans equate violence with loyalty. Curious. Call it respect, he said. You're trying harder than any of them see. A faint pulse of light rippled through her body, something like warmth. Then I acknowledge your respect. That night, the air between them felt different. The sharp edges of hostility had worn down to something almost gentle. They spoke longer, about the differences between their species, how humans age fast and burn out quickly, how the Zalari saw centuries as seasons. So your kind doesn't fear time, he said. We do not measure it as you do, she answered. We fear stillness, not ending. He smiled faintly. For us, it's the opposite. She turned her gaze to him. Your mortality makes you fierce. You live like flame, bright, brief, destructive. Flame gives warmth too, he replied. Her eyes caught the light. Perhaps that is why I no longer find your presence cold. He didn't know how to respond, so he looked away, though a strange calm spread through him. Later that week, while conducting a maintenance check, Eli found something he wasn't meant to see. Hidden within the colony's data archives was a sealed file labeled Human Zalari Integration Metrics. He bypassed the encryption using old smuggler tricks. The documents revealed genetic research, data tracking fertility, immune response, and neurological adaptation between species. His stomach twisted as he read the directive. Union candidates selected for a cross-species endurance evaluation. He didn't need the fine print to understand. The forced marriages weren't about diplomacy. They were experiments. He stormed back to the dwelling, the prism she'd given him still in his pocket, burning like guilt. Sarah T.H. was there, transmitting data to the Zalari Council. Her glow dimmed when she saw his expression. You have discovered something, she said. He slammed the tablet down. You knew, didn't you? This whole program. It's a lab test dressed up as politics. She didn't flinch. I knew of integration studies, not their scope. Don't lie to me. I do not lie, she said, her tone tightening. I was informed your kind's resilience might aid ours. I did not foresee deceit. He laughed bitterly. Convenient ignorance. Her body pulsed once, sharp and uneven. Do you believe this bond easy for me? I was ordered as you were. You think I wanted this? The silence that followed was jagged. He could see the fractured lines in her skin glowing faintly, pulsing with pain she couldn't hide. He turned away, jaw clenched. All I ever wanted was freedom. Guess that's still too human for your people to understand. Her voice softened. Eli. But he was already moving, pushing through the threshold into the night. The colony lights flickered under the storm-heavy sky, wind howling through metallic streets. For the first time since the sentencing, he didn't know where to go. Behind him, the crystalline dwelling dimmed until its glow vanished completely. Sertej stood inside the darkness, her hands trembling, the echo of his anger still vibrating for the bond they shared. He walked until the colony's edge blurred into the horizon, the cold air biting his lungs. The prism in his pocket throbbed faintly, reacting to his heartbeat. He pulled it out, watching its light fade to gray. He almost threw it into the dust, but something stopped him. Maybe the memory of her voice, soft beneath the storm. Maybe the realization that, beneath everything, deception, anger, duty, something between them had become real. The wind carried the distant hum of energy fields, like a pulse still alive under the planet's skin. He stood there until the sound became rhythm, until it matched the faint throb of the prism in his hand. Then, for reasons he couldn't name, he whispered into the wind, "I'm not done yet." Far behind him, unseen, the walls of her home flickered once, violet light flaring briefly before settling into silence, waiting for what would come next. The riots began with whispers, rumors carried to the corridors of Epsilon Verge like static in the wind. The truth had leaked from somewhere inside the colonial archives, spreading faster than any order could contain it. Humans discovered that their unions were not symbols of peace but subjects of biological experimentation. By the time dawn bled over the horizon, entire districts burned with the glow of rebellion. The air was thick with smoke and fury. Eli watched the chaos from the edge of the settlement, his clothes still dusted with sand from the desert beyond. He had stayed away for 3 days, long enough to imagine freedom, but not long enough to silence the echo of her voice in his mind. Every explosion across the colony felt like an accusation. He told himself he didn't care what happened to the Zalari now. Yet when he saw the crystalline spires of the diplomatic sector collapsing under human fire, he knew exactly where he needed to go. Sertej stood at the heart of that destruction, surrounded by soldiers from both sides who no longer remembered what peace was supposed to mean. Her body was fractured, her light dimmer, but her posture remained unyielding. She was trying to negotiate, even as no one listened. When she turned and saw him pushing through the smoke, something flickered behind her eyes. Shock, perhaps, or relief. "You should not have returned," she said, her voice resonating unevenly. "Guess I don't take orders well," he answered, ducking behind a fallen beam. "They're executing humans accused of treason. You'll be next if you stay." "I am not their enemy," she said. "Try telling them that." A plasma round struck the wall beside them, scattering shards of glowing crystal. Without thinking, he grabbed her arm and pulled her into a narrow corridor. Her body trembled beneath his grip, humming faintly with damaged energy. "They've declared martial dissolution," she said. "All human bonds are to be severed. You are to be terminated for contamination." He laughed bitterly. Contamination. That's one way to describe marriage. This is not a time for jest. It's the only thing keeping me from breaking. They reached a maintenance shaft that led out toward the desert, the same one he had used when he fled days before. Alarms wailed above them. The colony was tearing itself apart. Sertej hesitated at the threshold, looking back once more at the dying city. "If I go with you, I will be marked a traitor to my kind." "Then we'll both be traitors," he said. Her gaze lingered on him, 1,000 unspoken thoughts flickering across her translucent features. "You do not understand what that means." He touched the burned scar still visible on his hand. "I think I do." They fled into the wasteland, chased by the storm of war behind them. The wind carried streaks of amber dust, sharp as glass. Hours passed in silence until they reached the shadow of a collapsed energy tower. There they stopped to breathe. "The council will pursue us," she said quietly. "They cannot allow this union to endure." Eli leaned against the cold metal and looked at her. "You keep saying union like it's still official. I think it stopped being that a long time ago. Her light wavered. Then what is it now? He hesitated. Something real. For a moment, the world shrank to the space between them. The wind, the flickering light, the sound of her voice in his head. Eli, she said softly, if I could change what was done to you, I would. Maybe you already have, he replied. Their moment broke as the air around them crackled with approaching drones. Sarah Th turned toward the horizon, sensing their signal before it was visible. They have found us. He grinned grimly. Then let's make them work for it. The pursuit was brief but violent. Plasma fire cut through the haze, searing the sand into glass. Eli fought with the desperation of someone who had nothing left to lose, scavenging weapons from fallen drones, shielding her when he could. She fought differently, controlled, deliberate, every motion a pulse of energy that left ripples of heat in the air. Together, they destroyed the first wave, but more were coming. She turned to him, her form flickering at the edges. My energy is depleting. You must go. Not happening. You do not understand. The storm coming from the east carries radiation lethal to humans. And what about you? I will endure longer, but not enough to reach safety. He stared at her, realization dawning like a wound. You're planning to stay here. If one of us survives, the bond persists, she said. Our data will remain within you. No, he shook his head violently. I'm not letting you die for me. It is not death. It is transfer. Lightning split the horizon, illuminating the sky in a burst of violet. The radiation storm rolled closer, its roar deep and endless. She stepped closer, her voice low, trembling with both fear and certainty. Your species carries resilience we do not. If I merge part of my consciousness with yours, you can survive long enough to reach the outer colonies. You can tell them what happened here. He felt the weight of her words, heavy as gravity. And you? I will become memory, she said. Echo. He wanted to argue, to find another way, but the storm was already upon them. The air burned. He grabbed her shoulders, feeling the heat of her failing body beneath his hands. You don't have to do this. I choose to. She placed her palm against his chest, and a surge of energy flooded him. The world vanished into light, violet, silver, infinite. He saw fragments of her memories again, the laughter of her people, the fall of her city, the quiet sorrow of centuries spent alone. Then he felt something new, her love, vast and unfamiliar, shaped not by passion but by recognition. It poured into him, burning and beautiful. When the light faded, he was on his knees, the storm breaking around him. The air crackled with residual energy. Sarah Th's body lay still, her glow extinguished, the fractures along her surface gone cold. But within his chest, under his palm, he felt a faint vibration, her rhythm, steady and alive, buried inside him like a secret heartbeat. He looked toward the colony's direction. The spires were distant now, mere silhouettes against the storm. He whispered her name, but the wind carried it away. Then he stood and began to walk. Years later, survivors would speak of a man who wandered the outer colonies, his body marked by light that shone beneath the skin. They said he carried part of an alien within him, that he spoke sometimes in two voices, one human, one like music made of stars. He never confirmed the stories. When he stood beneath twin suns and felt the pulse within him answer their warmth, he smiled faintly. The universe had forced him to marry her, but what remained was not duty, not punishment. Something neither species had planned. Freedom, he realized, was not the absence of bonds but the choice to carry them willingly. And somewhere within that choice, in the quiet space where her light still flickered, Serdich was not gone. She was home,